Hello, Abhishek. Thank you so much for taking the time to join the CSR communication series that I run on my blog. So, this is a series I do with thought leaders to understand what their perspective on communications is specifically to CSR. So, before we begin, it'll be great if you could quickly introduce yourself for our viewers.
Hey Anishu, thank you so much and a very good evening. So pleasure to have this interview with you today. Um, I work for a technology firm called Brilio Technologies, and I'm currently director for sustainability, primarily responsible for the environment, social, and governance, the ESG piece.
Hmm.
And you know, apart from my work, I also teach sustainability and CSR in business schools. So before
Fantastic.
coming to sustainability, I was a marketeer like you, and been a decade into marketing before I foray into the sustainability field. Yeah.
Fantastic. So yeah, I know you are the expert and the guru in the CSR sustainability domain, but this is a very niche topic of CSR communications, and I think this is an area which is hardly discussed or talked as much as it should be. So before we, when we get started, I just want to ask you the first question is, how is CSR or sustainability understood or defined by organization, and so why is it so important?
So I think sustainability in CSR in today's world is no longer it's like a feel good or do good, right?
Correct.
It's all about how it's integrated in your culture and your business agenda. So
Hmm.
sustainability CSR is it's a more of like a built-in than
Hmm.
the bolt-on.
Okay.
Right. That's a
Okay.
shift what we have seen in the years. It's a very much part of a business strategy, and that's what and that's why say sustainability functions and CSR functions are now pretty much part of reporting to the C or C minus one, right? So that's a
Right.
kind of focus it has attained in the last few years.
Fantastic. And so how does your organization go about communicating CSR? Because most of the time, and again, from a cultural standpoint, we feel that if you communicate, it sounds like we're boastful. So what methods, channels, resources do you all use to communicate CSR?
Yeah, very interesting, an issue. I think that dilemma, even after, maybe few years, the dilemma will continue, where to draw a line or where to draw a Lakshman Rekha, right?
Right.
Especially on external communications. So I think, what I believe and what we believe as an organization is that you should communicate,
Mm,
but not to advertise,
mm,
but kind of take the message out and
mm,
get more hands, more resources on board for the good, right?
right.
So communicate to educate, communicate to advocate,
Mm,
communicate to kind of motivate people
mm,
is what we have been the strategy, right?
right.
Um, and not communicate to kind of to kind of get any business as such or
Mm.
looking at those things. It's more about want to see that the good gets spread and more good can happen.
Great, great. And is there a dedicated team which manages communications for CSR? Is it a common team? And I'm more specifically interested in, what are the skills that your organization value about CSR communication professionals? What is it that comes to your mind as to what should they be strong at?
Nishu, so I think we do not have a comps person within the CSR and sustainability team,
Mm,
um, but that's a prerequisite when somebody joins our team,
right.
right? So I mean, you if you have to do good for environment and society, you have to be a good communicator. But said that, I would say I mean our communication is still a large portion is managed by the sustainability team, but
Mm,
external communication and some of our media related stuff, it's still we do in house with our centralized communications team, right?
okay.
I think it's very important whether you are in sustainability or managing communications outside the sustainability team to
Mm,
understand that how the communication lingos, the
mm,
images, and the sensitivity around has to be understood, right?
got it.
um, right, gone are the days when you show a picture portraying somebody probably in a poor or something, and then
mm,
asking for it. I think
mm,
time has changed. The audiences have matured. I
mm,
think um, people don't want to be told what they want, what they should be doing, but
mm,
they are more engaged in engaging with you, co-creating with you. So
mm.
when you have stakeholders, internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, who are a
Right.
little more educated, who are more understanding this space and who want to be a partner, I think the
Mm.
communication also is getting aligned to that.
Got it. And what are some of the skills you think are very important for CSR communication professionals or CSR professionals to have?
So I think you need to have a subject matter, right?
Mm, mm,
Like any marketing, domains, whether you're doing for business or not. I
right.
think having understanding about this space is really a big, add-on to your, skills.
Right.
The second is that you should be doing volunteering yourself
Mm,
to understand how it goes, right?
right.
Right. It's very difficult for you to kind of write CSR communications where not you're too involved. No, I won't say too involved, but at least
Mm,
you have the flair of it, that how it works, what
mm,
it takes, right? Um,
mm,
Now, you also have to be sensitive about the kind of languages you use for business versus when you're writing for CSR. It's
mm,
not the same,
right.
right? Don't use your those Oxford dictionary words when you're communicating CSR, because
Mm,
it is for community, it is for a larger audience, it's not for,
correct.
right? So
Mm,
those are the tweaks you have to make amongst
mm,
your writing skills, right?
mm,
Um, the second is that a lot of subtle messages you have to
mm,
give when you are
mm,
communicating. It's
right.
not all direct on your face, right?
Mm,
So the switch, when you do with the corporate communication or marketing communication
mm,
and the CSI communication, the sense of understanding the the stakeholder. I mean, your stakeholders are different here, right?
correct.
Even the employees whom you're communicating, who are your
Mm,
stakeholders, they are
mm,
they are your co-creator in the program. They are not
mm,
not like other way receiving a communication,
correct.
right? And there's a lot of dialogues happen two ways,
Mm,
right? Especially on social media. You see that most of the social media, CSR or, green marketing and those kind
yeah.
of efforts, they take a lot of eyeballs, right?
Mm,
But at the same time,
mm,
where you should not do overdo, and
mm,
otherwise the brickbats can come to you,
right.
right?
Right. Right.
So because now the social media will has made our life little tougher, because
Mm,
if you are just claiming high and not having substance to can support it,
right.
so it can hit you very hard. So those are the sensitivity I would suggest. But in terms of the communication channels,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna use the same communication channel, be it
Mm,
internal communication channels like newsletter, videos,
mm, mm, mm,
external social media, etc.
right.
So I think there's not much difference in skill per se,
Mm,
but you need to just make sure that you are sensitized and aware about the kind of work you are doing, the kind of
got it.
communication you're doing.
So if while I'm not interested in the budgets per se, but broadly, where do you invest if you're looking at the CSR communication side of thing? Where do you invest your energies on? So is it more on the external communication, internal communication to stakeholders? So where does the investment really go?
So I think if you look at India, 2% CSR
Mm,
hardly allows you to do any communication, like
mm,
investment in marketing and communications.
right.
So obviously your marketing and CSR communication dollar sits out of your, the budgets of
Correct.
your project budgets.
Right.
So obviously there are any organization will have very limited budgets.
Mm,
You will um, you know
mm,
so I think what we look at, some of the programs where there is a benefit to the larger community,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
those kind of campaigns we run.
mm.
It could be as simple as you're running some COVID-19 related campaign,
Got it.
or you're creating some digital collaterals which can be used by your beneficiaries. So your
Mm,
communication also have an intent for to make an impact, rather
mm,
than you are investing your dollars in trying to get a mileage out of it, but it's not the
got it.
case.
Got it. Got it. And you've been teaching at few B schools on this topic. So what are some of the trends that you are observing with CSR and especially related to communicating with stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, my last course which I took, just before the pandemic was about NGO marketing.
Hmm.
So there was a course in MBA, for
Okay.
non-profit marketing.
Right.
And that's the first time I took it, right? So that's how the evolve those courses are now in some of the business schools. And
Mm,
what we have seen, right, most of the business schools now, they
mm,
have sustainability,
mm,
responsible marketing, you
mm.
know, green marketing, and so many stuffs happening within the marketing, which is probably sometimes sits outside of the sustainability subjects what they read,
Right.
right? So there's a huge surge in terms of how the cause-based marketing or all of
Mm,
these things, and I'm seeing that,
mm,
and there's an interest, right? I mean, you and I may not get a lot of time to
mm,
watch TV news
mm,
or TV channels these days
mm.
because we are so consuming information on digital, but
Correct.
you will see the kind of ads spend the companies are doing before the
Mm,
for a social cause based
mm,
marketing and right. So I
mm,
think the guys who are looking at careers in FMCGs or those kind of organizations, they
mm,
understand that the dimensions of how what can a social messaging led marketing can do. So
mm,
there's an interest,
mm.
and there are certain colleges who have a sustainability or CSR MBS program, like a
Okay.
specialization program, right?
Right.
And including some of the IMs have started it. So
Mm,
that's how the trend is,
mm,
and I see that in our future there will be a more ESG related marketing,
mm.
than just about talking. I think people, I mean, it's also about the consumer.
Right.
So, so way the consumer is getting aware about products and how you see that, the packaging becoming an issue for e-commerce, or
Mm,
the products which is more organic is getting more liked in the countries like us. I mean, the
mm,
place you and I live, you will
mm.
see how much organic or Ayurveda shops have opened in the last few
Correct.
years.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of sense of going green and being more close to nature is what I see will be driving it. Yeah.
Great. So, if you could describe a campaign that you are personally proud of, where there has been a tangible business outcome and impact, but again, what are some of the key communication tools and channels and the way you all have gone about it? If you could describe that, it'll be great.
So, for CSR and volunteering, I always believe that seeing is believing, right?
Mm, mm,
Um, and a journey of a volunteer starts from a, traveler, tourist to a guide.
mm,
And it's very important to kind of nudge somebody to at least become a traveler
mm.
in the space of volunteering and CSR. So campaigns which I want to talk about, we run a campaign called Precious You.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at communications, especially for employee communications,
Mm-hmm.
we always talked about, hey, somebody needs this help. Hey,
Mm,
this guy needs medical assistance. Somebody needs education support.
mm,
But but do we say that, hey, Anushu, you are so precious. You are a
mm,
center of the communication. So we made the
mm,
first time a shift and
mm,
made the employees, made those volunteers
mm.
at the center of the communication, not the cause, not the problem
Right.
statement.
Got it.
And we said, hey, you are precious, and you can do a lot because God has been kind to you,
Mm,
and not talking about the problem first, and then asking some help, but
mm.
telling you and nudging you that, hey, you are having have privilege to kind of give somebody.
Got it.
And so that kind of shift in messaging has been one of the most successful campaigns, internal campaigns we had,
Great.
where almost 80 to 90% of employees participated.
Wow, that's
And
huge. Mm,
yeah, and what we did, we we never thanked those in our employees. Hey, you have done
mm,
amazing work.
mm,
So we had a lot of children who come to our offices. They want to
mm,
meet. So we
mm,
invited children, whoever wants to come,
mm,
meet these employees, and whatever they had to share. So I think
mm,
once the kids came to office during this campaign, they
mm,
met these employees and talked about how Brilio is supporting some of these initiative in social. I think
mm.
it's like then the employees become the center of attraction, center of the whole communication.
Right.
That's when this just give us a 10x result than the in the volunteer sign up and all. So that was a one, you
Fantastic.
know, example I wanted to share. Yeah.
Great, great. And there are a lot of CSR practitioners out there, and what is your advice for them in terms of how can they be more effective communicators? Because usually communication is thought about very late in the day, and the last mile really. So how can they be more effective in terms of communicating?
So there's a lot of trial and error method happens in the CSR,
Mm,
especially when you are dealing with people who are going to support you in a very volunteering in nature.
mm, mm, mm,
There is a not one single recipe for
mm,
one organization, but
mm.
you have to keep inventing like what
Right,
works in your organization, what kind of cultural fit is there in your every company have their own cultural fits as well,
right, right.
but not experimenting and not trying to reinvent and rewire yourself
Mm,
is not an solution. There's, not an option for you.
mm,
So I think you have to look out. See, the
mm.
biggest challenge is that how do you measure your communication?
Mm.
And nobody's going to teach you or nobody going to
Correct.
tell you. The best
Mm,
part is that you keep measuring your communication efforts
mm,
and
mm.
see what works and what is not working that best and rewire
Absolutely.
yourself, right?
Right.
When we saw a decline, we said, okay, let's do some, make the employee in the center of
Mm,
communication, right?
mm,
Sometimes you have to just get out and organize a town hall or a
right.
flash mob.
Mm,
These are also communication channel which you don't talk, right?
absolutely.
Having a flash mob, on a Friday evening with some kids coming and
Right.
it's all sudden, right? So and then they talk about it, they get excited about it. So
Mm,
some unconventional methods also we can look at it, you
mm,
know, having a laptop stickers with volunteering options, right?
mm,
People are the youngsters they love nowadays. Like
mm.
small cool things also. You have to get out of
Yeah.
the tech based all the time. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes you can as I said, right, like these flash mobs or
Mm,
organize a music theme parties. You
correct.
know, so I think the events is very important in a
Great.
CSR communication apart from your other communication. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. And related to that, there is, because of this 2% CSR now, there is a lot more thinking about jobs and careers in sustainability, CSR, ESG, and all that. So, what's your advice for those who want to make a break in, or get a break in this evolving function?
So, Anisha, frankly speaking, 15 years back, I started my career, 14 to 15 years back. And
Mm,
I'm sure, a decade, 2 decades old, you have been in this industry.
right.
We have seen ourselves how this whole ESG has evolved, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The companies where we have worked, right?
Mm,
CSR was like a more like afterthought, a
right.
bolt-on approach, you know,
Yeah.
very close to PR, I would say,
Yeah.
in a couple of years back. So
Right.
I think the whole idea about sustainability, where you have social enterprises, you have non-fossil fuel cars coming up, the green cars
Mm,
coming up,
mm,
adoption of alternate energies, especially on
mm,
the what
mm,
happening on solar and all.
mm,
You will need a lot of people. And
mm,
the one shift what an issue would have seen now in
mm,
CSR sustainability or non-profits or any of
mm,
the social enterprise sectors, you would have
mm,
seen that there's a lot of MBAs coming in. There are a lot
mm,
of tech folks coming in, right? IT
mm, mm,
engineers, software
mm,
engineers. Why
mm,
is that shift happening? Because these organizations also understood that we need a diverse people
mm.
to run these
Yes.
programs,
Got
right?
it.
We need MSWs, we need
Mm,
people but I think we also need people who are architect,
mm.
who are data science,
Right.
and a graduate, right? Because data
Yeah.
has a lot of role to play in the any
Correct.
social impact. So,
Absolutely.
so there is a whole bunch of requirement happening,
Mm,
and also this is both financially rewarding
Mm,
as well as it's a very gratifying to do good for the society as a part of a job, right?
mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
that's why you've seen an issue. There's a surge in MBA programs. So in Bangalore you have in IIMs are doing it, and
Correct.
so many other institutes are doing it.
Mm,
Dedicated MBAs in sustainability or or a specialization. So I think there's a huge career opportunity,
mm,
and people mindset have opened. Non-profits are looking at and
mm,
how things happen in some of the developed countries,
mm,
where they invite people from diverse background to work in a
mm.
non-profit sector. And
Got it.
also an issue you see
Mm,
that the non-profit and profit sectors,
mm,
the thin line has been always has almost breached. So you will
mm.
see people moving from profit to non-profit, coming back to profit,
Yeah.
and that's what is. It's no longer that if you work in a non-profit or a CSR sustainability, you cannot go back to business.
Mm,
And there are
got
so many businesses which is built on the core of sustainability.
right. Absolutely.
Those
Great.
businesses will flourish. Yeah, yeah.
Great point. Great points. And so, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, what can organizations do to get better? Because with CSR communications, because there's always the thing that leaders are not involved, managers are not doing enough. So how can this become more embedded in the culture of the organization, CSR and communications?
So I always say communicate to motivate, but don't communicate to advertise.
Mm,
See, that it's very important that an issue that leaders
mm,
have to really walk the walk, talk the talk, not one time or two time,
mm,
but demonstrate again and again, again and
mm,
again.
mm.
Then only your internal, your employees will start believing in it,
Right.
right? If you just make it an announcement at a fancy forums, it may not
Mm,
stick. It may not be very sticky to them. So
got it.
it's very important that your leaders should really walk the walk and talk to them as many times as possible.
Mm,
Volunteer, whenever they can,
mm,
right? I think those kind of, and when they communicate, it
mm.
become very authentic.
Got it.
So your
Got it.
leadership communication on ESG had to be authentic,
Mm,
and to be authentic, you
mm,
have to be part of the game. You cannot be
mm.
out of the game and try to be sell these ideas to people who are in the game. So that's very
Absolutely.
important. That's how the leaders has to understand this piece now.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oops. You there?
Yeah, and there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think we just momentarily lost. So this has been brilliant. Really great insights, Abhishek. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure this is going to be extremely valued. So thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anishu. Take care. Have a great evening.
Thank you.